and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be going through the Diverse Places detailed revision notes. I have done these for every other Edexcel topic. This is my last one that I'm filming. This is the last one that's going up on my channel. But I hope you have found these useful. I may start doing the GCSE ones for if any of the GCSE students are watching these. But yeah, fingers crossed you have enjoyed them. I know they're some of the most popular videos on my channel, and so I wanted to get as many done and get them all up before your A-levels. So after this I will continue with the week by week ones, because I still have a couple of units to finish on that, and so they will be up. They probably all won't be up before the May exams, but you've now got the detailed revision of each one. This is just that's not even revision, that is literally just teaching. So yeah, I wanted to go through that today with you. As I said, it's the Diverse Places one. If you're not on the Edexcel specification, I'm sure these will still be useful to whatever exam board you are doing, but these are obviously specific, so make sure you are also looking at your exam board. But without further ado, let's get straight on into it. Describing a population. The demographic transition model. Populations are expected to rise and fall naturally due to increasing development. Populations will grow if the birth rate, number of babies born per 1,000 people, increases, and the death rate, number of deaths per 1,000 people, decreases. There are 4 stages to the demographic transition model. Stage 1. There is a high birth and death rate, meaning that the total population tends to be quite low, and there isn't much change in population size. The country tends to be poorly developed, and so has little spending on services such as health education. Most employment is in primary industries, such as farming or mining, which can be intensive labour work and low income. Birth rates are high due to factors such as a lack of access to contraception, religious beliefs, lack of education, etc. Death rates are high for various reasons, including lack of safe drinking water and sanitation, malnutrition, and lack of access to healthcare. Stage 2. The death rate begins to decrease while the birth rate stays high. This means that the population starts to increase. This is because the country often has become more developed, meaning it has more money to be spent on hospitals and doctors, which has an effect on reducing the death rate. The population will increase as a result of fewer people dying. Epidemics and disease are better understood, with households developing basic knowledge of sanitation and transmission of diseases. Improvements in farming and mining practices, such as use of machinery, will reduce injuries and fatalities in the workplace. As development increases, secondary industries, so manufacturing and production, will also develop. Secondary industries are often higher paid and have more secure jobs. So workers are paid for how many hours they work rather than the crops they produce, and the jobs aren't seasonal. This means income is more consistent, and often standards of living improve and malnutrition decreases. Stage 3. The death rate continues to decrease while birth rates decrease, meaning the population expands more rapidly. Often women have more rights and therefore have more education and improved access to contraception and family planning. A focus on career may mean women start having children later, and they may also have less children. A move from the primary industry means most families don't need so many children to work on the land. And then stage 4. The birth rate and death rate are lower than and have plateaued at this point. Despite this, the population continues to increase for MADCs as migrants from other countries are attracted for skills and employment opportunities and the better quality of life that they provide. If controlled, migration can fill gaps and keep services and industries growing. The demographic transition model suggests there is a correlation between development of a country and its birth and death rates, and any changes in these are fairly gradual. There are few exceptions, such as the UAE, whose sudden population growth is predominantly due to economic migration. Also, the model doesn't consider countries whose development worsens. Countries devastated by conflict or natural disaster. For example, Syria's development has significantly declined due to the conflict here. There has been a significant outward migration to avoid bombing, infrastructure and services have collapsed as a result, and death rates are significantly larger than the model suggests for LADC countries. Haiti was devastated by an earthquake in 2010. Most countries will experience an increased death rate following a natural disaster. However, Haiti still hasn't recovered, and following the 2010 earthquake, It experienced a cholera outbreak, claiming 9,200 lives by 2016, as the river became contaminated with sewage. It also experiences an annual hurricane season, causing storm surges, severe winds, and threatening the temporary shelters that were built for the displaced people. And then 2 years after the earthquake, only half of the rubble created during the earthquake had still been cleared. Population structure. The UK population structure. The population of the UK is unevenly distributed because of the condition of the land area. 84% of the population in England has low-lying hospitable land. There is a dense population in major cities concentrating along the south coast. The lowest population density is in rural areas. Rapid growth in areas of economic development, such as London and the south east. But there are also declining populations, such as the Scottish coast and Cumbria, due to lack of employment opportunities and counter-urbanisation from deindustrialised cities like Bradford. Reasons for the UK population changes. Birth rates have increased over the last century. So population growth, as population increases, the number of childbearing people increases, and so the population increases as a result. And then government policy, so there has been an increase in the widening and benefits of maternity and paternity leave. Birth rates in the UK are the lowest this decade. Birth rates might decline due to the use of contraception being more widespread, there's free access through the NHS, and sex ed is taught in schools. Religion. Britain is tending to become less religious, with more people identifying as atheists or becoming less strict than the previous generations. This means they can use contraception and get married later than the previous generations, feeling less pressure to have children by religion. And there's also an increasing financial cost of raising a child, meaning some families are choosing to have less children. And then the advancement of women. More women wish to pursue a career and so postpone having children. Death rates have generally decreased in the UK due to advancement of medicine, so many diseases have been eradicated due to access of healthcare. Immunisation has increased again. Many diseases have been eradicated with minimal cases of polio, measles and rubella. And then there is also clean water and sanitation. 96% of UK households are connected to the main sewage system and 100% have access to clean water, hence reducing the risk of waterborne diseases and diarrhoea. However, the death rate of Western countries is limited by their lifestyle choices, which reduce average life expectancy, such as smoking and alcohol consumption, which can lead to lung and liver cancer, and an unbalanced diet, which leads to obesity and type 2 diabetes. The diet, heavy in carbs and sugar, is unsuitable for the office jobs that many of us here in the UK do. There has been a large increase inward international migration in the UK since World War II, due to political alliances, especially with Commonwealth countries. There is a lower price of long distance travel, there's less war and conflict, and there's increased employment opportunities in foreign countries. The UK's population has changed and diversified. Its urban and rural environments have developed over the last 50 years. These changes continue to affect the UK to this day. The UK's diversity may be due to various reasons. Political relations, economic opportunities, migrants fleeing conflict, perception of a better life here, and new technology. In the 1960s, large-scale housing construction provided so many of the working class with new houses. Some social housing was built, but often as tower blocks, which increased the crime rate, reduced the quality of life in social housing. There was inward international migration from Pakistan and India, and the development of transporting people, such as the development of the jet aircraft and goods through containerisation in the 1950s, accelerated the movement of people and goods into the 1960s. The Commonwealth Act of 1962 restricted the flow of migrants, Commonwealth migrants specifically, to those with skills, encouraging economic migration. The 1970s. A decline in secondary industries in cities such as Liverpool and Birmingham. There was an increase in unemployed and poor city living conditions, which encouraged migration away from major city hubs. Docks became unnecessary with improving plane transportation. Therefore, large-scale dereliction occurred in the docks of London, Liverpool and Salford. There was also inward migration from Vietnam, Bangladesh and Chile following a military coup. In the 1980s, there was an economic recession, which caused unemployment and deindustrialisation in many towns and cities. This discouraged some international migrants who are better interested in employment opportunities in the UK. The UK government began to offer tax incentives and special economic zones to try and encourage foreign direct investment, and TNCs establishing office or manufacturing within the UK. The first basic internet was also developed. Over time, this would lead to the development of online banking in 1984, allowing capital and financial transactions to transfer around the world quickly. There was also international inward migration from China, Sri Lanka, Sudan, Somalia and Australia. In the 1990s, the UK population is mainly due to net migration, or growth is mainly due to net migration. Conflict in the Congo, the Balkans, Yemen, Kosovo encourages international migration to the UK. The collapse of the Soviet Union also encouraged migration to the UK as migrants wished to improve their quality of life. In 1994, the first smartphone was developed, and the NHS began recruiting overseas to try and use migrants to fill their skills gaps. The 2000s. The Race Relations Amendment Act aimed to reduce racial tensions and reduce discrimination by the police and the government. Suburbanisation accelerated, creating new towns for highly paid migrants to move into, offering them a more rural lifestyle whilst maintaining their jobs in the city nearby. The EU freedom of movement increased migrants from the UK to reduce limitations. There was an increase in the creation of religious secondary and primary schools to cater for Muslim and Jewish migrants. The development of social media allowed personal or business connections to be made across the world, and the expansion of the EU to include previously Soviet states, increasing the number of Polish, Slovakian and Lithuanian migrants in the UK. And then in the 2010s, London's reputation continued to develop and attract new migrants by developing a multicultural city, as shown through the Olympic Games, the election of Sadiq Khan, and the clustering of different cultures and ethnicities. Conflict in Syria pushed asylum seekers into the UK, and Brexit caused uncertainty in migration and population patterns, increasing outward migration of some British wishing to live in Spain and France, and there was uncertainty for existing Commonwealth and international migrants, and the closure of some TNC's manufacturing plants, as they may have wished to remain connected to the EU for logistics and a cheaper workforce with more economic certainty. The rural-urban continuum. Population density varies between high density, inner urban areas and low density, remote areas. Continuum. There is the urban core, the suburban, urban sprawl, the commuter settlements and abandoned towns, the suburbanised villages and market towns, there's rural villages and farming areas, and then there is remote tourism and second home areas. Population density, as well as the characteristics of the built environment, suggest the changes in the stages of the rural-urban continuum. The urban city structure. Most cities have a similar structure, with development occurring outwards and the living conditions changing as you travel further out of the city. There are two models that can describe the structure of a city, the Burgess and Hoyt model. The Burgess model shows the city of having bands moving outward from the central business district in the city. The next band to the CBD is often industrial, followed by working class housing. The other residential bands are often middle class and commuter areas. Here the houses become bigger and more spaced out as you move further away from the city and into the suburbs. Typically, the class of the population increases the further suburban you go, and so the type and size of housing, income and quality of life will improve too. Hoyt's model is slightly different and has an industry travelling outwards in sectors. These often run parallel to transport routes. In the past, these have followed rivers when transportation was mostly done by boat, but recently this has changed to more railways and train lines. The working class housing tends to be closer to the industrial areas in this model. Place character. Place character relates to the specific qualities, attributes or features of a location that make it unique. Place character is affected by endogenous and exogenous factors. What are endogenous factors? These are which originate from within the place and are local. So the land use, is it urban or rural? The topography, the relief of the land, The physical geography, so are there any physical structures like waterfalls or estuaries? The infrastructure, so built services enhance or are essential to living conditions like roads, railways, canals, airports, broadband and phone networks, water supply, sewers, electrical grids, parks, public schools, hospitals, libraries, the education system, what's healthcare provision like, what's the local government like, law and enforcement and emergency services. It also looks at the demographic characteristics such as age and gender, number of people and ethnicity of the population. The built environment is looking at the architecture of the area, so is it contemporary, is it ageing, is it historical? The location of the area, so the elevation, the distance to the coast, and then economic characteristics such as is it an in-debt area, is there a growth market, are there ageing industries, what are the economic sectors like? And then the exogenous factors. These are which originate outside a place and provide linkages and relationships to and with other people. Exogenous factors are commonly referred to as flows of people, money, resources and ideas. So people. This impacts the number of tourists, workers, migrants, refugees, visitors and changing quantities of people in an area over time. Germany, for example, has around 1.4 million asylum seekers who integrate into their society through creating political and social disputes. Though also creating political and social disputes. Inevitably, this will impact the character of Germany. Money and investment. Trade deals, tax, major events such as sports competitions, new businesses of movement to an area of businesses. Such as London, the borough of Stratford, before, during and after it hosted the Olympics, had a long-lasting impact on its place character. Smaller sporting events may have shorter-term impacts. The resources, so the availability of raw materials, products, foods, water, energy. Due to the transportation of network, the UK food is secure. If crop fails one year, more food can be imported from other countries to make up the deficit. In less developed countries, this is unlikely to be possible. And ideas. Entrepreneurs may move to another area, bringing new businesses with them. Ideas could be information about an area from another country, and designers could drive creative processes within an area. Detroit, for example, has been impacted by the ideas of urban planners, which has helped develop the city, leading to positive reviews by Lonely Planet. This has driven the tourist industry of Detroit, impacting on its character. Over time, endogenous factors will be shaped by the changing flows of exogenous factors. Perception of living spaces. The perception of an individual is dependent on factors, including life experience, what individual people have experienced unique to them, the stage of life, what an individual of a particular age tends to believe or value, and economic position such as wealth, employment or financial background, as well as many other factors, so age, family composition, gender level, education level, gender, income, religion, employment possibilities, service availability, public transport options, affordable housing, broadband and utility access, pollution levels, crime levels, physical climate, traffic and congestion, and open spaces. Insiders and outsiders. Insiders are those people who feel at home within and may have the following characteristics. They may be born within an area, hold citizenship for there, they may be fluent in the local language and conform with the IDOMs. So these are the phrases that you use in this particular area. They're different for everywhere. And they will also conform with the social norms and behavioural traits that are common in that area. Outsiders, obviously, are the opposite of insiders. Lots of factors can contribute to making someone feel like an insider or an outsider of a place. This feeling of belonging can change over time. In the case that people do not belong to the main ethnic group of a community, they may feel like outsiders. For example, an immigrant family could have moved to a neighbourhood where they are an ethnic minority, which combined with other factors may cause the family to feel like outsiders. For example, initially they may have not become accustomed to the culture, social norms and dialect of the majority of the community. The shops and restaurants may not be familiar to them. They might find it hard to find particular foods which they were able to find in their country of origin, and the architecture of the building and the vehicles on the street may look different to what they're used to. Perception of urban places. Victorians perceived inner city areas to be dangerous and threatening because of pollution, poverty and crime, which means that it was seen as a lower class area. However, nowadays inner city areas are perceived differently. Inner cities also provide paid job opportunities, a range of amenities with the local surroundings. Some urban areas may still have negative images associated with them due to high crime levels and poor living standards. There is a large variety of houses and lifestyles available within the inner city than elsewhere in the country. Regeneration of derelict areas will appeal to higher income individuals due to gentrification, whereas some people would prefer green environments. For disadvantaged or low-income families, inner city areas may provide the most affordable social housing. Perception of rural places. The rural ideal is the general perception that rural areas are beautiful, pleasant, relaxed areas which is free of crime, has a relaxed pace of life and a strong sense of community. Rural areas also have large visitor attractions, viewings on TVs combined with art and literature connections. They're a major source of tourism and connections to encourage people to visit and improve the economy of the area. Tourism will also create new job opportunities through this work and tend to be low paid and seasonal. However, the reality of living in a rural area can differ depending on the rural ideal. House prices can make it unaffordable for low-income families to live here. High energy prices for old systems may make homes have higher maintenance costs. There may be many seasonal jobs as tourism is only busy in the summer. Infrequent access to public services as long, expensive journeys, and isolation from services, which can cause severe consequences for the elderly population who need easy access to healthcare and can become lonely. Clustering can occur, so migrant groups live in significant clustered communities. People who share similar cultural beliefs or want to be located close to one another for facilities and to feel at home. However, this can create a misleading view of the proportions of migrants in the UK. Inclusion. By adapting to British beliefs and achieving qualifications in education, migrants have the same chances of being successful economically as their social locals. Local and second and third generation economic migrants are better adapted to the UK as they have a hybrid culture of their traditional beliefs and British influence. Within recent years, members of these communities have MPs and councillors that can represent them. And then tension. The differences between the original population and ethnic clusters can lead to increased anxiety and cause people to take action. Hostility can then continue to build, and even more people become involved and the issue is escalated. Often these tensions are based on incorrect perceptions of or fake news in the media. Measuring management of cultural issues using quantitative data. For example, comparing the inclusivity of different ethnicities within workplaces, poverty rates for ethnic minorities, and involvement in election voting where allowed. The most successful management of cultural issues is usually by non-economic factors to gauge social acceptance and happiness of people. And progress on cultural issues. Cases of prejudice and issues between different cultures can escalate into violent attacks. Hate crime is the assault on minority groups, and levels of hate crime have been escalating quickly. It's important to consider urban and rural stakeholders. A stakeholder is any individual involved in management or construction process with a point to express. Stakeholders include local businesses, residents and TNCs that operate within the region. That is actually all I'm going to do for this unit because the next two parts are all about case studies that you have to use, so that will be different for everybody. I'm going to leave some questions below that you can think about when you're doing your case study, but that is it. My battery is about to die, but thank you so much for watching. Do subscribe down below and I'll see you soon. Bye guys.